everybody. Today I'm going to introduce you to our third major essay in this class, the problem solution essay. So in this class, we started with the remembered event essay, where we worked from our own memory to make a specific point, which you talked about in your reflection in the essay about this is what this experience taught me. Following that, we had the profile essay, wherein we used our observations of the world. So you went out, you made observations, you talked to people, and from the information that you personally gathered, you came to a specific conclusion about that person, that place, that event, etc. And now we're going to move into more of a traditional research paper where we are using information that other people have gathered in order to make a point. So that's kind of how we're building through this class, is starting with our memory to our own observations and now using the information and observations gathered by other people. So now that you have a general understanding of how we're building up to this point in the class, I'd like to talk about the essay itself. So first of all, this is going to be a problem solution essay, which I particularly enjoy that we do a problem solution essay in this class instead of just something where we convince the reader that there is a problem. Because a lot of times in our world, we tend to talk a lot about problems and saying like, this is bad, that's bad, but we don't necessarily talk about how to fix those problems, which is a big deal. We need to not just know how to complain about things that are going on in the world, but also think about how we're going to change them. And this is obviously going to be beneficial in your future work environments or your current work environments, where you might point out a problem with a specific technology that you're using, or the way your company is going about like creating something, or even structural problems. And how do we show, one, that there is a problem, but then also how do we convince somebody that they should use the solution that we have like chosen based on research. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at the official handout to kind of go through what is expected of you. All right, so the purpose of the problem solution essay is to help you develop your critical thinking and research skills. By writing this essay, you will learn research and citation skills and gain practice drafting, revising, and editing your writing. Effective writing used in the development of this project teaches valuable skills applicable to your community, workplace, and daily life. This type of project uses clear reasoning, supporting details, and logical analyses of information to convince others to consider your views. All right, so again, this is really thinking not just about how do I present something, but how do you get someone to agree with you? So convincing somebody that a problem exists and convincing them that your proposed solution is the best solution and steps that we can take to actually implement that solution. So more specifically, we're going to look at the task. And you are going to use at least 4. You can use as many as you want, but you have to have at least 4 sources that are credible, and you are going to use APA citation format in your essay. So a lot of you have probably worked with MLA. If you did any citation in high school, it was probably using MLA style. APA is just a different citation style that is more common than MLA, because MLA is really just for English majors, and none of you are English majors, so you're much more likely to use APA, maybe Chicago or other formats, but APA is most common, which is why we try to teach it to you in this class. So using sources and APA citation format, you are going to write a persuasive, research-based essay that identifies a problem found in your personal or professional life and proposes a viable solution, right? So we'll go into a little bit more detail about what exactly that breaks down into. But before we do that, let's look at some important dates. So your rough draft is due Sunday, July 11th, and that is due to both this class and the OWL. And then you have a revised draft due the following week, again, to both this class and the OWL. And then the following week, your final draft is due. Now, like all of your essays leading up to this, you are able to revise your essay for increased credit. And if you choose to do so, the revised essay is due Sunday, August 8th. So let's look at the specific criteria for success to see how you, like, what I will be grading you on. As always, our criteria for success are broken down into several categories, with the content development being the most important because that is where you are really getting your ideas down and showing that you can work through an argument. Next, you have your organization, which for this essay will be even more building upon our previous organization skills because you will need a thesis statement, you will need topic sentences, you'll need transitions, all these things that really help glue different paragraphs together throughout the essay, which hasn't been as important leading up to this point. You'll also need 4 sources, as stated previously, and that all of your sources should be cited both in the text and in the reference page. And we'll go over that a lot more in week 8 about how in the world do you cite things in APA style. But right now, just know that you should be using 4 sources that are included both in the essay and on your reference page, and that they should be reputable sources, which we will talk about in a little bit about what does it mean to be a good source. Next big point is that you will also be graded on having a good thesis statement. So we had a thesis statement for the profile essay, but for the problem solution essay, you really want a strong thesis statement that has clear information about both the problem and the solution. So not just saying like pollution is a problem and it should be solved by not polluting. You really want to explain, one, I would recommend not just choosing pollution, but choosing a very specific category of pollution. So in the past, somebody wrote specifically about water pollution, and not just water pollution, but groundwater pollution. So going from this big topic of pollution down to a smaller topic of water pollution, and then even tighter into groundwater pollution, and looking at the impact of lawn fertilizer on groundwater pollution. So the problem itself was how fertilizer impacts groundwater, and it impacts it by doing XYZ. And then taking that and saying, to address this problem, people, whoever they chose, should do this. So that makes it very specific, and we'll talk more about what makes a very good thesis statement for this essay later, but that's just kind of an overview. Lastly, as always, we have our professionalism with grammar goals and format. One big thing to point out for format is this time we have a separate references page. So your references, your bibliography should be on a completely separate page. It should not be on the last page of your essay. And then also this essay will be written in third person point of view. So you should not have I or you, and specifically thinking about we or our or us, which tends to trip people up a little. So now that we've kind of gone over that, I want to look a little bit more at the content development. I know I skipped over that. So a top quality essay should provide sophisticated definitions. So for your essay, you want to make sure that your reader is on the same page as you. So I'm going to choose a very simple example of family. So if you were writing your essay about something with dealing with family, you'd have to explain, what do you mean exactly when you say family? Because you could mean a small nuclear blood-related family of 2 parents and 2 blood-related children. You could mean a small family that is not blood related, so they could have adopted siblings or step siblings, this type of thing. Or you could talk about extended families in both categories of blood related or not blood related. You could also include people who become family, who are like close friends, who just, it's like they are your sister or your brother or your uncle, even though they aren't blood related or legally related at all. So you want to make sure in your essay to have a clear definition of your key terms so that your readers are on the same page as you. After that, you should also have a background information section. So we'll go into more information about this later, but for the background information, you're just going to give your reader all the information necessary to help them get to the here and now. So for example, this is where you would say, what are the current practices and policies? What are the current laws that exist? So if we were talking about air pollution caused by motor vehicles, we might talk about the difference between diesel cars, gasoline powered vehicles, hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles. So those will partially be in your definition, but you would also talk about the legislation that already exists. So at present, cars need to be more environmentally friendly than they needed to be 20 years ago because there are certain regulations in place. So you might also talk about how different areas have different legislation and regulation regarding how environmentally friendly vehicles need to be and what kind of emissions they have. All right, so that's one thing. I'm talking about the background information. All the information in the background information section needs to be neutral. So that is, no matter who reads your essay, as long as they are not a conspiracy theorist, they should agree. So everyone can agree that X is a law. Everyone can agree that this data is true. We might have arguments about like what that means, but we agree that it is the case, right? So that's a very important part of the background information, is that it's just completely neutral and setting the stage for the rest of your essay. After that, you will dive into the discussion of the problem, and there's two ways you can address this. So one is if it's unclear that your problem is a problem to a lot of people, such as my example about fertilizer, in your discussion of the problem, you would explain why fertilizer is a problem and what that does to the environment, what it does to groundwater, if you're talking about groundwater specifically, etc. If your problem is clearly a problem, such as relationship violence or homelessness, and pretty much everybody's going to go like, yeah, those aren't good things, then you can explain the root causes of the problem and how those relate to your solution. So for example, if you were talking about homelessness, you might talk about the mental health aspect of homelessness or the lack of affordable housing in a specific area, because those things will help lead to your solution so that you're getting at the root of the problem and not just painting the sides to make it look prettier. After you explain your problem, you'll go into your solution, which you should describe a single proposed solution. So not you should do this or this or this and this. It should be one solution, as well as explain why it's the best solution and who is responsible for implementing it. All right, so again, we'll talk about all of these things later, but this is an overview that's not the quickest overview, but a decent understanding before we move forward. So now we're going to look through some ideas for how you should go about completing this essay. The first thing, as always, is to brainstorm and think about what should you be writing about. For this essay, I highly, highly, highly recommend choosing something that you care about and that you are interested in, because you will be reading a lot about this topic and you will be spending the next several weeks reading about it and writing about it. And if you do not like your topic, if you are not interested in it, even if you think it's an easy topic is going to be much harder than one you're interested in. So be good to your future self and choose something that you actually like. So some proposed ideas are thinking about coffee cups that are not recyclable because they use a plastic liner on top of the paper. And so that's a very specific problem. And then a very specific solution would be that state legislators need to pass laws to require companies to make their cups fully recyclable. So that looks at a specific problem and a specific solution that addresses that problem. Another idea is that there's no safe places for children to play in the community. And this would be one where you could talk about, here's why that's bad, or you could kind of state what are the implications of this, that children can't play in the community. And then the solution could be local lawmakers need to require schools to remain open for after-school sports for all neighborhood children, make pocket parks for neighborhood play, and offer programs for kids at branch libraries. So this has a three-part solution. And for this, I would recommend choosing one of these, not all three. But that's just three different ideas for where you could go. right? I'm going to jump down a little bit. So one thing is that, which I've kind of said already, is that your problem should be specific. So again, not just pollution, and narrow. So that means a narrow focus. So remember when I was talking about groundwater pollution, I started with pollution, went to water pollution, down to groundwater pollution, and then groundwater pollution caused by fertilizer. So when you're looking at a very specific problem, it's actually a lot easier to research than when you're looking at a broad problem. And it's a lot easier to come up with a concrete, very specific solution where you can really talk about it in a specific manner and not just broad and vague, which will make your essay a lot better. After you've chosen your topic, you might want to think about who, what, where, when, why, how. So thinking about who can solve the problem, who is causing the problem, what exactly is the problem, when is it happening, where is it happening, why is it happening, how is it happening? Just looking and asking a lot of questions to really figure out the nitty-gritty behind it. And you also want to create a solution that addresses the cause of the problem, not just a symptom of it. So if you're thinking about an illness, you want to actually treat the illness itself and not the symptoms. So say you had strep throat, and instead of taking any medicine to get rid of strep throat, you just sucked on cough drops all day or spritzed like some like numbing solution in the back of your throat. You're going to have a sore throat for a lot longer if you take that path instead of actually treating the strep throat itself. So we want to treat our problems and solutions in much the same way, that we're addressing the cause of the problem and not just a symptom of the problem. After you have chosen your topic, you're going to create a thesis statement that identifies the problem and proposes a solution. I recommend starting with a very simple formula that says topic is a problem because XYZ. Obviously, this isn't very pretty, but it makes sure that you have all the required information and you can always revise it later. After you have the problem is a problem because you then would say, to solve this problem, who should do what? So one example of this is the following. Northeastern University's high tuition, so that's your topic, is a problem because students from poor or working class families in Boston cannot attend. So there's our reason why. To solve the problem, Northeastern's Board of Trustees, that's who should solve it, should implement a policy stating Northeastern will charge only 10% of the student's family's income if that student's family income falls below the federal poverty line, right? So there's our do what. So we have who should do what. And that's very clear. And starting with this, your reader knows exactly what you are going to talk about in your essay, which is the hallmark of a great thesis statement. Now, if you're looking at a problem where it is an obvious problem like homelessness, you are going to use a root cause thesis. So you might say the root cause of your topic is or are the causes, and therefore who should do what, just like the other topic, the other thesis statement. So for example, you might write, the root causes of homelessness in Washtenaw County are rising housing costs and lack of affordable housing. So we have our what, homelessness in Washtenaw County, and we have our causes, rising housing costs and lack of affordable housing. Therefore, the Washtenaw County Department of Community and Economic Development, so that's a very specific who, should implement legislation to provide income restricted housing. So that's the do what. Right? So you see how this is working to say what is caused by what and who should do what, right? Once you have that thesis statement, obviously you can change your thesis statement as you're writing. But once you have that, you're going to start building out your essay from wherever you want. But for this essay, you will need an introduction, and then you will need background information that, as I said before, gives the definition of key terms as well as the current state of things and relevant history. Then you will have the body where you are discussing the problem, as well as, and then the body discussion of the solution, and then your conclusion where you wrap everything up and perhaps show the reader what is it going to be like once your solution is implemented. From there, you will revise and revise and revise, and then edit for format and grammar and surface level stuff. So here on the last pages, I have just a basic template to kind of see what should go in each section, as well as resources to help you to understand how to write that section very well. All right, so that is the problem solution essay. Thank you so much for keeping up with me. I know that was a lot of information, and we'll dive in a lot deeper as we move forward in the next 4 weeks. All right, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.